Well, good morning. We will get started. My name is David Hunsinger, and today we're going to talk about the Ingenico iSC250 with the EMV. You get to look at the lovely device and not me today. So thanks for coming. Just remember, this is Keystroke Live, 10 a.m., same login information every week. So a little bit about the iSC250 itself, and before I go any further, I am going to mute everyone just so we don't get the background noise there, and then I will unmute for questions at the end. But it's available from JR's POS Depot or POS portal. You can get a USB or serial device. Ordering from JR's or anywhere, there's basically 5 pieces of information the device needs to be set up with. That's the Ingenico RBA, that is retail base application is what RBA stands for. RBA 17, the data caps form load, they call it the Mercury Vantive PGZ, that's the credit card encryption, the Mercury Vantive debit card encryption, and then the Mercury Vantive end-to-end encryption. So there's kind of 3 keys and 2 pieces of software to load when you order. And see if I can get this switched. So hopefully now in a second here you will be seeing the JR's POS Depot order page, and on here on the left-hand column there's Mercury specific products, and I'm just going to select that, and that takes us to a Mercury specific page. And we've got the VX805s and then the iSC250. I'm just going to go to the USB choice rather than the serial. And this has everything you need exactly for it: the power supply, the cable, the loads, and so this is everything you need. You don't need to do anything different than what's right on this page when you're ordering the iSC250. And we've communicated with quite a few different folks at JR's to make sure everybody's on the same page there. As you go to install the iSC250, the number one thing is just follow our instruction sheet. We've refined it a few times since we first released it. So, be sure you have the latest version of Keystroke and the latest version of the installation instructions. And they basically start with install the Jungo drivers for USB. We are recommending always to use COM9. We've pretty much found if you use COM9, you'll never or never have a problem. And so what this Jungo driver does is converts the USB to USB to a serial port. So I'm going to go to our Keystroke Update installer, and I'm going to select third-party drivers. And now I've got to share my Internet Explorer page here. So this is the Keystroke website that it takes you to, and hopefully it'll come up. Looks like it just came up there. And on here you just go down to Ingenico drivers, click it, it'll download. I've done that already. So, now if I get the right one shared here, it'll pop up in a second. This is after you've downloaded it. What we recommend here at Keystroke, I've double-clicked the file and zip it. I'm going to extract, and I am going to extract to my Keystroke folder. And I've already done this once, so I'm just going to say yes and do it for all items. And it goes ahead and unzips everything, so I can browse to my Keystroke folder, just doing it on top of all of that. And if I pull up the instructions here, that so you can see this is part of our updated device, but and I'm not going to read this word for word, but it's a good thing to follow that you install Keystroke, you set this up with the USB cable, doing the Jungo drivers, place them in the Keystroke directory, so there's this drivers directory below it, and then you just follow all of the directions here, and just so you guys can see, I am going to, oh, that's my documentation. But if I go here to drivers, I have the Ingenico iSC250 that I'm going to select. And then it gives me another choice for iSC250. Here is, oh, sorry, I was trying to make the description longer there. Here's all the instructions, and you run the application that is the Ingenico USB drivers 2.80 setup. And for this, I think I'm just going to go ahead and share my whole screen so you can kind of see everything as it goes along. And as it's updating here, so I start this, I'm just going to select run. And it will run my setup, hopefully. There we go. Next, install it to that default directory. And then this is where, if you've never run it before, there'll be nothing in here. And basically, you want to do force COM port. Here, you can just select the iSC250, and we want it to go to COM9, and select connection order. We want COM9 to be there. This information up here really doesn't affect anything. It's just good to select. It's really putting the 9 right here is what will put the driver in the right place and have COM9 ready for you to go. And I'm going to cancel out of here just so I don't mess up what I've got. But this is the screen that you really need to do the force COM port and specify COM9. So we've set up the Jungo drivers. Now we need to install the NetEPay. Again, we go to the Keystroke update installer, and hopefully it'll pop up here in a second with the drivers window. I think there it is. And here we just select the Mercury DataCap NetEPay. When I click that, it brings up the DataCap web page. I'm going to go to my PowerPoint presentation here just so you get the little bit of the idea. And you download it from the update installer. I'll show you there's some client controls here that are installed with Keystroke, and you install it on one machine that has internet access on your network, and be sure to note what the IP is of that machine. So if I look at their web page that is below that there's this step 1 install client control. We do that when you install Keystroke. You can scroll down to the bottom and download the Mercury US EMV down here. There is also the user guide that contains the implementation guide for the NetEPay. You select download, takes you another page, you agree, and I'm going to go ahead and do that. And I'm going to go ahead and run the software as it downloads. Now, I'm not going to completely set up the NetEPay here because we're using a test server, and so it's kind of a slightly different version. We do test with both the live NetEPay and the test NetEPay. So it's just go ahead and installing. It should pop up there. It's probably moving too fast for all this to update. So go ahead and install it. I'm just going to say next, and I agree. There's that, and username organization doesn't really matter. I'm going to go ahead and install it, and this will just take a minute here, and then we will look at what exactly the NetEPay looks like. Remember, NetEPay is a executable. It does not run as a service. There's not a service version of it. So once you have NetEPay installed, it's like it's asking me something, and we do. I'm going to say finish. And I'm just going to say no because I don't want to restart. I'm going to go ahead and fire this up. When you start NetEPay, I'll give this a second here. This is, it says license required, and do you obtain a serial number, and it goes out through the internet and gets a serial number for that particular version of NetEPay running on that machine. So my machine that's running it upstairs will have a different serial number. This brings you to, this is what NetEPay looks like. It's offline. It says at the top, let's see if I can make this a little bigger. If I share just the NetEPay, it says offline at the top. That's because we haven't given it a deployment ID. I can just select setup information. You see there's no, or now you can see, there's no choices. This is all grayed out. You can't change anything here. I do load new parameters, and it needs to be activated, attempt activation. I can say yes. You would say I have my deployment ID, and then you'd type it in here. I'm not typing in my deployment ID because I don't want to, if I type it in here, it takes away the license from the machine on our network that is running NetEPay, and I want, because we have other people using it and all, I don't want to take that away, and I'm just using the machine on our network. So I'm going to go ahead and cancel out of here. There is this PSCS down here that when you click it, it takes you to a website, and if I'll just share everything here. If you go to this website, you get this configure your serial number. I can select that, configure my serial number. It can't do it. There's a bunch of settings on here like internet or dial-up backup. They don't do anything. All we've determined is that those settings that you get to when you do this PSCS will mess you up. So really it's just I bring it up so that, you know, don't use that. Just go ahead and load new parameters. There is also this lane setup. The way Keystroke works with NetEPay, we don't need separate lanes. We send requests by register, and just the one lane setup works fine with Keystroke. So that is NetEPay. The other thing, remember, is you can't close it by clicking this X. You have to do File and Exit, and so you can't run it. You can't run it as a service. It needs to have a machine that boots into Windows, and then the NetEPay is in the startup directory, so it automatically starts for you. And now I'm going just back to my PowerPoint for right now. Hopefully it'll come up here in a second. Also, when you install that, you want to be sure you note the IP address, because you're going to use that in Keystroke, so it knows where to send the request to. So here's Keystroke POS. What you do in there, you set up the authorization method, set up the PIN pad, test it, you're ready to go. So we've been through most of the setup. So now if I just switch over to Keystroke here, and if I log in, I will go first to my sales payment types. I will select my Visa, MasterCard, Discover. This is just kind of how we have it set up by default. My auth method, I will use, we have the KP credit, was what we always used with KeyPay, and with NetEPay we use this Merck EMV. I'm just going to edit it right here so we can take a look at it. So I've got my merchant ID that you obtained from Mercury. I've got my server address, which on our network is 10.1.8.34. That's where we've got it running upstairs. There's a note here, make sure to use a static IP address. I think Randy brought that up. Thanks for bringing that up. In general, just on any keystroke network, it's good to use static IP addresses. I think it just helps keep things organized. Not a requirement, but we have found, like with the Cayenne Genius or even computers, if you have cell phones connecting to wireless networks, your IP addresses can change, and it's good to have that static IP address so that if anything is ever referring to another machine on the network, it's got that IP address correctly. There's this select or name on select pay list. So what this is saying anything that is using the EMV credit debit, this Merck EMV authorization method, when you select credit debit, that will be the only payment listed on the list. So with my payment mappings down here, I've got debit is 14, Visa, MasterCard, Discover is 5, and American Express is 6. So these 5 items will not show up on the list. They will all be grouped under this one credit debit authorization method. So it works real well to do this payment mappings, do this credit debit. You want to be sure you've got your entry device set to pin pad and that you've got the capture signature turned on, because the iSC250 is a capture signature device. To do the test server, you have to be sure you've got everything set up. So I typically say, hey, you don't need to do this right now because we need to set up the pin pad before this button will work. So I'm just going to go ahead and save all this. Then I'm going to select hardware and pin pad, and I've got my Mercury Vantive. Now remember, there's the iSC250 with EMV and no EMV. Be sure to select the EMV one. You can do the test pin pad. I'm going to say go ahead and OK. And what it does is it says, OK, Keystroke can talk to the pin pad. Keystroke can talk to NetEPay. We're all good to go. I do OK. Download EMV parameters to device. You need to do this the first time you use the device. And I'm not, just because it does take a couple of minutes. It gets Keystroke, the way Keystroke handles the transaction flow on there. And so, we might say, oh, if the signature is not capturing or it's not prompting you to insert the EMV card, run this download EMV parameters. Sets up your device to work with Keystroke. So that is completed. I also want to be sure to go in here and say signature capture with EMV port. My COM9 shows up because that's from the Jungo driver. I'm going to go ahead and OK, and so now I can go to the sales manager here, and I'm just going to enter a simple sale. So if I put in, let's do item number 5 because it's nice and cheap, golf tees. Go here. So you see I don't have Visa, MasterCard, Discover, American Express debit, just have the one credit debit to select. So I'm going to go ahead and select that. Now you'll see on the screen it says sale 108, OK, and I select OK. Now insert swipe or tap card, so I'm going to go ahead and insert my card. It tells me it's Visa credit. Don't remove the card. And then it says approved, please remove card. You pull your card out. And I can go ahead and sign it. Signature accepted. Sale good. Do OK. Make sure the card's out of the device again. And I'm go ahead and can save it. If I do credit debit again, going to take my card. It's processing on payment. Sale 217. OK. I select OK. And if I go ahead and swipe my card, see, it doesn't want me to swipe it, tells me to insert it. So I insert it. Now this is a PIN credit card. So if you can see on the screen there, it's asking me for PIN. I know Target issues these. I don't know who else does. It's not a debit card, it's a credit card. Enter the PIN, hit OK. That's the European way and probably the more secure way, but I remove it. It's not going to prompt me for a signature because it was a PIN credit card. And I select OK, and I'm ready for the next sale. If I go back to my PowerPoint presentation here, so we set up the authorization method. Be sure you got the IP address. Be sure to turn on signature capture. We set up the PIN and signature capture, ran the test, did a test transaction. There is this important factor if you want to look up on the Vantiv portal to make sure you see the transaction and confirm the deposit 2 days later. And just, anytime, whether you're setting them up with KeyPay or EMV devices, that's a good exercise to do just to make sure everything looks okay and is hitting all right. Some problems we've seen is, the accounts were goofy because there was one account for non-encrypted devices and one account for encrypted devices. So this confirms it, so you can nip that problem in the bud. And then I've got a few troubleshooting tips. Follow the instructions. We do keep them updated. We've updated them, I think, a couple of times recently. So there is, I think, on the website and in the Build 34 release, the instructions are updated. Remember about the Vantiv EMV debit restrictions. So EMV is Vantiv is still not certified to run EMV or chip debit cards, so they get run as credit cards. So you want to be sure to realize that it's not going to prompt for a PIN with debit cards for now. They've said third quarter, and we are in the third quarter, so they think sooner rather than later that they'll have that ready to go, and I believe there's nothing merchants need to do. It's just when they're certified, everybody gets turned on to run those as debit cards. We are making improvements with every build, so it's good to keep up with the latest version of Keystroke. Couple of things: EMV reader not working, do download parameters. No signature capture. There was a problem in 32 that it wasn't doing it, so be sure you're on build 33 or later. And also, if you have a mapped payment that is using a different authorization method, it might not have signature capture turned on. So you want to be sure those mapped payments look correct. Remember, and we do have a few receipts ready to go for EMV, but you can make them look however you want to as you print those receipts. So that is a quick view of setting up and using the iSC250 with EMV. I didn't talk a lot about the field update. It's something that Mercury set up, and they wrote some software specific to do it. The Mercury update can update, you have to be on RBA 12.1, I think it is, or higher, and you have to have the Mercury Vantiv debit key, which older devices might have the global debit key, but they said anything pretty much in about the past year would have the Mercury Vantiv debit key. And it's a bit of software that runs, and it really updates two things: the RBA and the data cap forms load. So those three keys have to be correct, and it'll get you from RBA 12 to RBA 17 and give you the latest data cap forms load. And you can contact Molly at Vantiv to get you that program and the setup information and all. So with that, I am going to unmute everyone and see if there are any questions.
Dave, Randy had one question in the chat box there about does the payment type not have to be at the top of the list any longer?
No, you still want your primary. It doesn't have to be at the top of the list, but you want the first payment type using the Merck EMV method to be your main one, so like Visa or MasterCard or whatever, but it does not have to be at the top of the list. And there was also you can get rid of, originally you had to print a EMV payment receipt, and then they realized this is a tedious thing, so they dropped it. So you can turn off the EMV payment receipt, or basically set it to none, and there's a little trick in Keystroke I will show you if I can get back to my Keystroke program here. Is if I go into the configuration manager under tables, and let's make sure everybody's seeing this. Okay, good. Under tables and print buttons, there are these choices for payments. If you don't have anything in here, then it will automatically print an EMV receipt. If you have a print button in here with EMV in the name, it will use it rather than that automatic EMV receipt. So what I did is I just created a print button named EMV, use on all, and I have no forms or printers or anything connected to it. So that's basically turning off the printing of the payment receipt. So then I am depending on my look at print button and sales. I've got my credit card receipt here that'll print out the customer, the line items, the approval code, and EMV payment block if I've got the right receipt. So I'm just using this receipt, rather the invoice receipt, rather than the payment receipt to make things a little bit cleaner and more straightforward. Thank you for the input, Randy. A lot of information there. We are learning more about it every day. So, like I say, be sure to give us a call if you run into anything.
Dave.
Oh, go ahead.
Kennard.
Hey, Kennard.
To your knowledge, has any keystroke dealer shipped any RBA 5 spec ARs for upgrade, and how did that go?
I have not, to my knowledge, have we done that. We tried to do that, but we made the mistake of it was a iSC250, and they don't have the 350 validated yet. So not to my knowledge. I don't know if anyone here has had any devices re-encrypted.
What about RBA 12 field upgrade to 17?
Yeah, I know a dealer in San Diego, Chris Trokey, she did quite a few devices and said it went flawlessly.
Yep, that's correct.
Question. On the COM9, if we're doing the upgrade, because I'm going to be doing the same thing from 12 to 17, but they're not on COM9. Do I need to go back and reset to COM9, or can I leave them set on COM6?
You can leave them set up as COM6. What we have run into is if you're using Touch Dynamic or PosiFlex terminals, they have 6 serial ports on them. So when you use COM6, it conflicts with the onboard COM6. So that's our main reason why we said always use COM9, is it just, we won't run into the problems of conflicting with maybe a physical COM port.
Okay. And one other question is, when I installed them originally, the ISCs had the cashback option available, and Lynn helped me work the way through to turn that off. When we update to RBA 17, is that feature going to get turned back on again?
No, because you can't really do it with the EMV devices, so they have it turned off. Now, when they get approved or certified for the EMV debit, I don't know if that will pop in there or not, but it's not there now.
Okay, thank you.
Dave, I had also mentioned about after everything is all installed and up and working, you can swap terminals between a couple of registers for testing purposes without making any other changes.
Right. We like when we're doing tech support a lot that, hey, let's try to eliminate things, and by saying, oh, if we switch device from machine to machine, does the problem follow the device or does it stick with the machine? That gives you a lot of information. It's just like in Keystroke when we say, hey, it's broken in Keystroke, does it work in Tutor? Then that tells you whether it's data files or program files. Kind of, okay, let's take a big step on figuring out where the problem is. So that's a good item. I also didn't show you, if you look here, and if I get it right side up, this is what you will see on the back of the device, that there is the 1702 RBA data cap form loads, and then this is small, and it'll say Vantive Mercury. This says global because it's their test platform, not the live one, but it'll say Vantive Mercury key. So that's what it'll look like when it comes encrypted from JR's POS depot.
Do you think there's ever going to be a time where we can have custom programming on the screen of the 250?
I think so. There's some things we're talking about, like, doing some custom programming, some additional, the cashback, the payment selection. I think they've got all that in the works. They're just, getting it out, and then it'll improve as time goes along here. Line item display is another thing they have on their roadmap.
That just answered my question. Dave, this was a very good session. Nick, I'm going to need to watch this again. When you'll have it posted on YouTube?
Yeah, I will get it.
I'll go ahead, Dave.
Oh, I said I'll get it processed into Nick shortly after the meeting here, and then it's just the time to get it up to YouTube. So I'm sure within an hour or two it'll be up there.
That can be done.
I ditto that. I need that as well.
And then,
all right,
I think,
give us a couple hours, it'll be there.
I think we're figuring Mike Tabor is doing a. I'm going to talk about PCI and EMV next week, and then the week after it'll be Mike Tabor's tech tips that I think are going to be just more that we've learned about the iSC250. So. Next week is I'm going to talk about PCI DSS and EMV and how it all works and what is the way to be most secure. And then we have Mike Tabor with tech tips. It'll probably be more about the iSC250 here. And then we are going to take off I believe it is the 3rd or 3rd of August, because that'll be just everyone getting back from the RSPA trade show, which don't forget about the Keystroke Dealer Summit that is July 30th and 31st in Dallas at the Gaylord Texan, that will be immediately followed by RSPA's Retail Now on the 1st and 2nd and 3rd of August. So you can talk to Nick about signing up to be there. It cost you a mighty nothing, at least to us, to come, but your time, and the Vantive has a promotion going that can buy you a ticket to go to RSPA if you get enough people to take their little 3-question survey. So you can talk to your Mercury Vantive rep about that as well. So thank you everyone for attending, and we look forward to seeing you or hearing you next week.
Hey, Dave, I got another one for you.